So, we're going to involve a little bit of theatrics-ish in this because that's my specialty. Don't get too excited. It's nothing like Jesse has been experiencing down south. I wrote about hats today by Katie King. I remember when your hat got run over by a lawnmower because we had spent the night before gazing at the stars in an open field and you had left it there on accident. You were sad about it, but you were 20 and I judged you for being sad. You may have even cried. You lost sex appeal for being sad about a hat. You went back and you found and wore that shredded thing. I remember when you threw a hat on top of a shop in the Paris train station and said, I want the hat to stay here. I have to go, but the hat stays here. It was romantic and silly, and it may have happened in a movie too, but I don't watch very many movies. I remember when you lost your hat in the water on a jet ski right after someone told you not to lose your hat. And when you did lose it, I judged you for being stupid. You lost respect as a father for being stupid, for losing your hat on a jet ski. Or was it a boat? Or was it even you? You were always doing dumb things like working a job that wasn't your passion so our family could eat. I remember when you wore a hat when we eloped in Tucson during the fall. I don't really remember the hats, but I remember the picture of you wearing it and that sometimes you would wear hats. You weren't especially attractive, but you had major presence, and hats always added to that. I never judged you for much. You were just the sexy guy I had a crush on, and then the man I married. I remember a hat you wore once which looked so stupid. You looked so stupid in that hat. You never knew anything about fashion, but your clothes were always new, which for some odd reason made me feel better about my life, sadly. I remember that I could never date anyone who wore a baseball hat. I remember your first hat, because it was your first hat. I remember a neon hat given at a white elephant exchange. Everyone wanted that neon hat. I remember drawing hats in music class. They were either at the bar to stay or at the bar for just one drink. You remember. I remember a straw hat with you and your daughter. It kept the sun out. You were both so annoying on that trip, but it still meant the world to me, like every other moment with you guys. I remember a Japanese boy in Las Vegas on the monorail. Look at my hat, he said, and he pulled down the strings and the ears flapped. It really made my day. I wouldn't have even seen that hat if it weren't for you. I remember when I tried to get you to wear a hat once. Boy, was that aggravating. I almost called you a son of a bitch because I was so mad, but then realized that in that situation, I would be the bitch. I remember when I put a sombrero on you at Goodwill. No one has ever bought me a hat as a romantic thing or a sex thing, because I'd remember that for sure. I remember when I wore that gray hat in Brooklyn the day you kissed me on Meserole. You were like Gumby. You were completely sober and the most affectionate in public person I'd ever met, even in those 10 minutes. There are people who have things that we will miss forever and never get back in anyone else. And you were one of those people. It was close to Thanksgiving. I remember how you photographed me in the Grand Canyon and that big hat you always wore on the river that had a mother spirit, just like you had a mother spirit without being a mother. Like many relationships, you could have meant something in my life long term, but decided to not exist in it instead. I remember how you kept a hat hung by the door. That was all I needed to know we wouldn't work out. Julia Roberts, in a film about being in a film by a sea in a hat. I've never run up to anyone to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I think you dropped your hat. At Halloween, I wear my giraffe hat, which is funny because I'm not tall. In this case, I'm a baby giraffe for Halloween. One fancy moment about a fancy hat thing, but I forget it. I feel it was important, but it is so gray, almost as if someone was like, hey, here's a ton of money to buy a hat, but I wasn't into it. And were we in San Diego? I almost felt like I didn't deserve it. We must have had money back then. Where the hell were we, and why were we buying hats? Really, my existence has been largely hatless. When you were diagnosed, you told me you didn't want the one free knit hat in the cancer waiting room. You wanted me to steal 3. So I stole you 3. Someone did actually get me a hat once. You got me one like the one you had? I don't remember. I'm so glad I don't remember many memories that contain you. One eyeball on your hat at my kid's school Halloween party. It did the trick, but they don't know who the purple people eater is anymore, do they? We walked down the street. I wore a hat, and you didn't. We talked about why you loved New Year's and why I didn't. That's it. No more about hats for now. All right. This next piece, I would like to invite people up to make shadow bunnies or shadow animals, if you would like. There are some lights here. Don't be shy. To see where I am smooth. Way to go, Lydia. I went to Hawaii to make someone I love happy. Corny as fuck, I know, but it worked. Shorelines as expansive as wombs, a people seemingly invigorated, long hair with bounty, siren coasts, voluptuous waves, dreamy hiking oases, foggy lush Kermit green mountains, and sand so soft you could slip into it like silk. But all I remember was this bird in a bush. Cherry-colored bird in a cashew-colored bush. Less a bush and more a medley of slender branches. A small bush, barren, and needing a bird. Standing still, photographed an antique, perhaps digesting some seed or worm or thought. It was not artificial or ornamental, but just posed, hanging by a thread, vulnerable and instant, as if it and I had to be existing simultaneously in order to be. Alive in relationship we were, as if the red wildflower bird in the nothing bush needed me in order to view it to exist. How selfish of me, since there are many birds in bushes without pose or pretense, waiting for no one in all places. Her head took on the unmistakable form of a woman undergoing cancer treatment. In the bad sleep nights, I awoke to see her hairless head, never shown to anyone but my son and I, silhouetted against the walls. She was making shadows in my computer's light, bunnies on the wall, insomnia, a common side effect of her infused tri-weekly cocktail. I loved that head. It had spurred every creative instinct I own. It was also pretty, may I be biased. Only my own age had shown me how truly stunning she was in her 30s. 2 blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids by her side and photos my memory loves to linger on. 1 year later, that head became infested with brain tumors. They crowned her brain's membrane like a series of precious stones. She is the type of mom to make anything out of nothing, to make bunnies out of shadows, to make palaces out of barren rooms. I'm not dipping into rosy retrospection. For this, I also suffered. Sometimes a room is just a room, or so I'm told. I swam under the ocean timidly. The water is not a place I belong in. The sun dropped its jaw in front of me, seeping orange, yellow, goozy ooze into the ocean's genitals. For once, monogamy was not boring. Consistent lovers since the chicken scratch of time. Ocean and sun. Celebrity couple. I felt a part of the scene, connected to the ocean as I was immersed in it and moving as the sun set into me, seemingly. Waikiki on a weeknight. Other times I know I am in the ocean, but I just don't feel connected to it. I try and nothing is there. Sometimes a room is just a room, or so I'm told. That's got to be a personal problem, not feeling connected. Whine, a boo and a who. No one would believe that the ocean just doesn't feel. It just isn't good press. Time races and I feel blind to him, my masterminding American son. Like he's behind a vicious gaze that I'm not a part of. Knocking on the fishbowl, I say, "Let me in," and he says, "Let me out." But watch me as I wiggle. We spend time at recommended restaurants comparing views and sundowns from the days before. Saturdays was brighter, but Sundays was more expansive. Munch. To many, this is a yearly happening, but for us, it's a once-in-a-lifetime journey under the unwanted thrust of a dismal diagnosis. We were happy, if only for certain parts of 7 days. Not sort of happy way happiness. Happiness so hard it takes your pain away, literally. Ever been there? I hope so. It felt wonderful to help make someone so happy. I hope that becomes contagious. Upon returning home, I realize I'm depressed as shit. Definition by opposites. I tell my then lover this and emphasize that it's not a big deal. A room is just a room, right? To see where I am smooth. The sand was so smooth beneath my feet, reminiscent of my son's legs for the first day. They were the smoothest things I'd ever felt in my life, like a jellyfish sliding on glass, not knowing whether its head was up or down, but gurgling. The bird knew that it was alone, that it had a sweet sound, that the sound it made when used was round and bright and necessary. It knew all that I don't know, a mother and I don't know. So joy is neither a bird on a bush, jellyfish legs, or grazing shadow bunnies, but the ink to connect the dots, and I can't find the pen. What connects them for me is literally worrying about which family member will die next and how, if I should send my son to preschool, in which bulletproof vest, paranoid predictions of when I will lose what I have, how crooked my teeth are after so many excuses not to wear my retainer. Ugh. I went to Hawaii to see 7-layer dip happiness, and all I remembered was a beautiful bird in a standalone bush, protruding from a small patch of field off the side of a railroad track. Thank you. And thank you, Lydia. Shadow puppets the whole way. Robert Mateo, next.